Here we go.
Now we start webinar.
Tell us, where you from?
So we're coming on, Lee. Take it over, buddy. Where's Maureen?
Of course, she's out.
We lost Maureen again,
She
Lee.
told us
Yeah,
she
we
had a
did.
she had plans.
Did you look behind the sofa?
Yeah.
I did.
She had.
Oh, I know. She's in Charlotte. They're having
Yeah.
fun right now.
Yep.
Go ahead, Lee. We got people coming in.
Fun night.
As you come on, please tell us in the chat where you're coming from. We've got Texas in the house, obviously, Tennessee, Illinois. We're waiting to see our Southeast Asia friends in Australia coming in as well. Louisiana, Maryland, Canada. We've got
All right.
82 already. Where are we at?
Oklahoma, Australia. There you go.
Canada, more Texas,
Phil.
North Dakota. We've got a great show tonight. We'll get started here in just a moment. Spokane, Washington, there on my backyard. Happy Valley, Oregon, also. Oklahoma.
Is everybody happy and
Kansas.
healthy?
All right, Lee. Let's get her going, buddy.
You betcha.
Data call.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Sea of Five. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, as Maureen says, so we're going to get started. We excuse her. Dr. Hayes is in North Carolina at one of the corporate events, and so we will do without her wit and her wisdom this evening, but we have some special guests with us tonight, which we'll get to in just a moment. But I want to welcome also our co-hosts, Jim and Ann Glenn from San Antonio. She's, Ann holds down the nutritional expert and the physical fitness area, and Jim is what we call our money man, former stockbroker, so you can wave and let everybody know.
Howdy.
Hey, y'all.
We have two guests tonight. This is the magnificent duo that we have often had on a Sea of Five, and so we kind of have, I guess this is kind of the physical modalities evening, where we have a doctor of osteopathy and a doctor of chiropractic, and they love each other. And so we appreciate having them with us again tonight. Let me just quickly introduce them, and then we will get started. Dr. Aaron Kaufman's practiced integrative family medicine in Albuquerque, New Mexico since 1986. He's board certified in family medicine. He's trained students since '87 and is on the clinical faculty of over 20 osteopathic, medical, naturopathic, nurse practitioner, and physician assistant schools. He's currently operating the 4th integrative medicine clinic he has established. He combines the best of Western medicine with herbal, homeopathic, nutritional, regenerative injection, human identical hormone replacement, and manipulative and other therapies from around the world. He's been using Redox cell signaling molecules since 2013, and he's a member of the ASEA Medical Professional Board. Dr. Foster Malmed received his bachelor's degree in anthropology from Syracuse University in 1979. After a chiropractor in Hazlet, New Jersey, helped rid him of his multiple sports injuries that he incurred on his way to becoming a New Jersey State all-around gymnastics champion, he changed his path from dentistry to chiropractic. After graduating from Palmer College of Chiropractic in 1983, he was trained and mentored by a chiropractor and applied kinesiologist with 50 years of knowledge and experience. He's now been a doctor of chiropractic and kinesiologist for almost 40 years. He's a sole chiropractor in the New York hospital from 2010 to 2015, a dream goal that he achieved after 27 years in practice. Presently, he has an office in Paterson, New York, while also working in multiple New York City locations as part of an amenity company, working as a chiropractor in some of Big Apple's premier buildings. We welcome them. My name is Dr. Lee Ostler. I'm a dentist in Washington State. I've been involved with ASEA for 4 or 5 years now, and am a regular co-host here on the ASEA 5. We begin by making a disclaimer that what we're talking about tonight is a supplement produced and marketed by the company ASEA Global. It is not a diagnosis or treatment or a cure or a prevention. And so with that preamble out of the way, we say hello to Aaron Kaufman and Foster Malmed. Let's start with Aaron. Would you get us kicked off here tonight? We talked in the pre-show here about maybe some topics, but give us first kind of, I know I read all of your accolades, but tell us really who you are. and why you're here, how you got into this, and some of, I know you've got some interesting stories. Go ahead, Aaron.
Well, I sort of live in Foster's shadow. I'm just his Sancho Panza, whatever the name was. Yeah, I've been in integrative medicine for my 37 years, and I was real drawn, Lee, when I was looking at going to medical school, to integrative alternative. That integrative was not a term back then. But I was just drawn to whatever helped people, whether it was in mainstream or alternative. And with the directions a lot of mainstream medicine has gone in over the 37 years I've been in practice, I get more and more drawn into things that really make a difference on a natural level. And ASEA was one of those. When I was presented with this, I took 2 years to investigate because I was such a medical skeptic. But, I was drawn to the fact that it was foundational human, redox signaling molecules, that it turned on and turned off everything in our bodies. And so that was what led me into it. And I had a lot of, powerful experiences. I don't know. Do you want me to go through my story again, or? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Again, I researched it for 2 years because I'd never heard of redox signaling, because it's a relatively new science and wasn't discovered until 1998, when these 3 Italian researchers won the Nobel Prize for discovering that nitric oxide was a signaling molecule, that it turned on and turned off all these natural pathways. When I was in medical school, when Foster and probably you too, Lee, were in our medical training and we studied biochemistry, we were looking at energy production, ATP production inside the mitochondria, and there were these negative and positive ions that spun off that we didn't think anything about. If anything, we thought they were waste products. Well, as of this discovery of nitric oxide being a signaling molecule, and then, Dr. Samuelson comes along and shows that this early ASEA product is full of these signaling molecules, and even more foundational, this became a whole new science. We found out that they were not waste products. They literally turned on and turned off, or signaled, every single process in every living cell. And therefore, the people listening don't hear me, they don't think a thought, they don't grow hair, digest food, their heart doesn't beat, they don't take a breath that's not signaled, turned on and turned off by these molecules, which are identical to what's in ASEA Redox and Renew 28 gel. And this is the first time anybody's ever figured out how to, create these, and more amazingly, stabilize them so that we can replenish them with aging and disease and just, need for athletic performance. Or like I used the gel and drank some ASEA half hour ago because I was going to be on this call and I worked all day and I'm tired and I feel great, So I was impressed, because everything I was doing in my practice was to try to help the body heal itself. And, all these different natural, methodologies from around the world. And this underlies everything. It makes everything I do and everything a patient does work better. So that was sort of my introduction, and a kind of an introduction to redox signaling.
Let's jump over to Foster. Foster, give us the same questions, how you discovered this, how it discovered you, what you first thought of it. And then we'll bounce back to Aaron. I want to hear he's got another story he's holding up his sleeve.
Just, Aaron always has another story. Just to be clear. Yes. So, and to have Aaron in my shadow, that's a pretty cool statement. So my introduction to this was much less scientific. So this was back in 2010. I had just become a member of the hospital, my local hospital here. They'd never had a chiropractor before. So when I was finally allowed in, I was under a microscope, and most doctors didn't want me in there for obvious reasons. And sort of like you, Lee, I had a wife that I just couldn't get better. So she had an illness for many years, and she was a personal trainer like Anne, and big into nutrition, and we could never get her better. She was just sick all the time, nothing we could do. So a friend from California reached out to tell me that he had access to this product, ASEA, which, and his quote was, improved VO2 max by 12% in 14 days, whatever it was. And I knew he didn't know what he was saying. But he was a good guy, and I bought it to shut him up. So we started drinking the stuff. And after 3 days, and we did all the wrong things. We bought one case to share, which was ridiculous, but we didn't know anything. And so it was just to shut him up. So we got 4 bottles, and Terry, after drinking it for 3 days, was up on that landing up there. And I was reading the newspaper back when I used to read newspaper. And she said, I don't know what's going on, but I feel amazing. Nothing hurts. And I said, awesome. You're having a good day. I'm going to the hospital. So I went to the hospital, came home. She was cooking. She was singing a little bit. And she said, an amazing day. And it's like, that's so great. So days went by. And after another couple of days, she said, I think you need to look at this stuff. And I said, oh, that saltwater product from Salt Lake City in the network marketing model that we're both drinking. I said, it did give you a new immune system. I said, so I'm not going to bother researching it. So several more days went by, and as sort of very embarrassingly, the story goes, when it became about me, when I had my own changes, when my brain got much faster and my digestion got much better, and my energy was off the charts, and my seasonal problems were essentially gone. I just wasn't experiencing them. I came home and said to my wife, I don't know what's going on, but this, and this are better. And she said, now you research that stuff. And I said, oh yeah, that saltwater based stuff we're drinking from Salt Lake City, that's MLM. I said, sure, I'll look. So I decided to go to the source, and I found the book that was written by Dr. Gary Samuelson, The Science of Healing Revealed. And I read the first half of that book, and I said, if this is true and what he says is real, then this is why we're both better, and this is going to change the world, and we need to find out more. So I called up the guy who invited us to try the product and said, how do I meet that guy? And how do I meet the people in this company so I can see if it's real? And they were launching the company a few weeks later. So we went and we heard stories and we heard information, and I met the physicists and I met the founders, and it took away some of my New York skepticism. And then as I started sharing it with patients in the hospital quietly, because I didn't want anybody to know I was doing an MLM in the hospital, I saw some miracles, some absolutely miraculous changes that weren't possible in any other way. And it was a little while later that we decided to do this as a business, and the rest is sort of history.
Awesome.
Real quick, Foster, can you mention that VO2 max that originally maybe caught your attention? What is that? Can you explain that to the folks out here, please?
Well, it's about your endurance. It's time to ventilatory threshold. And if you're a high-level athlete, you want your VO2 max to be amazing. And a high-level athlete, an Olympian, if they can get 1% or 2% improvement in their VO2 max in a month or 2 or 3 or 6, that's amazing. But to be able to make the improvements that ASEA study showed in just a couple of weeks, it was pretty miraculous. And so to know, and my wife and I, we worked out all the time. She was just challenged, but we've essentially been athletes our whole life. And when we saw that things like we could do things longer and harder, and our heart rates stayed better, and we could just do more and then recover faster the next day, it was miraculous, even though the guy who told us about it had no idea what he was talking about.
And then Aaron, that ties into you, Aaron, because you kind of had that same experience, but you experienced it with you running up your mountain, right?
Exactly. The first thing that really grabbed my attention was I've been a runner for 46 years. And I'd lived up here in Cedar Crest above Albuquerque at 7,000 feet for, at that time, 16 years. And I'd run up through the national forest up to 8,000 feet and back. And there was 8, so this was my first experience that got my attention. There's 8 places where, when I'm running uphill, where I hit the wall, the VO2 max, where you can't get enough oxygen to keep going. And so I had my arms up and I was, and I loved that feeling because I pushed the machine and, all this kind of weirdness that, performance athletes have. And so I start drinking this stuff, and I'm not even drinking it properly. I'm just drinking it on the days I run. And I'm powering up the mountain harder and faster. And by 3 months of drinking it, and by then I'd gotten a little more regular, but not a high dose by any means, I'm passing all 8 of those places where I would hit the wall by like 20 to 50 yards running uphill. And, the time I would have to, before I could start running again was dramatically reduced, just what Foster was talking about. So, by 3 months of drinking this, and it was a month before I turned 60, I had set new personal best times. So those trails I'd been running for 16 years by 20%. So, that's illustrative of, that increase in the time to hit VO2 max. The VO2 max is wall, the runners.
Now, Aaron, there's a couple or a lady in particular that was watching you. I believe she was one of your patients, and she had a very serious health issue. Do you remember who I'm talking about?
I don't. There's been so many of them. It's like, which
they
one?
they both had serious. She was in bed forever. Her husband also had a lot of health challenges, and she was watching you, noticing you running up and down the mountain and how you were able to go. Okay, and then and then you kind of shared something with her. But that's a rather remarkable testimony that I think, and Foster, you kind of had some pretty crazy things happen too that you couldn't explain, and maybe you can share some of that. But Aaron, can you just kind of really quickly share that real quick?
And that was Kathleen Means. I love that video.
Kathleen and Hank.
That was, Jim, man, that was a foundational experience. I had been drinking, it was about the time I was setting those personal bests. And, I, like many of us, when it first came out, we didn't know what it did. I thought, okay, it's for athletes, because the early studies were done on athletes with the VO2 max and, the endurance and so forth and so on. And I thought, oh, really sick people. But, I wasn't much into sharing it at that point, a little bit. But one day I was running by their house, and, I'd been treating her, and you kind of shot the HIPAA thing in the foot there. And so I can't really say much about it now. Anyways, but I had this, I'm thinking of how to say this because you used the name. I can't really talk about it.
Think of somebody else.
Yeah.
I thought, sorry about that. I guess I thought Jim was trying to get that
Well,
out.
I knew who it was, but I didn't want to say the name. So,
I wonder if
So,
Lee could-
another time we'll share that story without
Use their initials.
yeah. So Foster, real quick, why don't you then share some of the things that you saw early on that really kind of took you back as well? Because I know that story that Aaron would have shared, but and we've had that recorded. Actually, it's actually in Real Redox Results as well with Alan Noble. So you can hear that testimonial there. But Foster, what's some of the stuff? And I do have a topic I want to get into, and it kind of ties into a lot of this as well. But what were some of the, oh my Lord, did that really just happen to you?
Lee, this might be a good time for that disclaimer again.
Yeah.
Like
we may need to say it like 5 times here.
Exactly. So I'm not going to talk about anything. This is not medical advice. I am not your doctor unless you're one of my patients on here. But I'm not going to claim to cure, treat, diagnose, or prevent anything. But what really got now, first of all, my wife getting better, that got my attention. That got the ball rolling. But to make the conviction so that it was unflappable forever, One of my favorite patients, a retired New York City cop, did a side hustle because they weren't making much money back then. He was one of the first motorcycle cops in the city. He was doing roofing and insulation.
Whoa.
And they used to use asbestos. And so he had issues that were going to cause an untimely departure. So, but the guy was just hilarious and fun and charismatic, just like Aaron. And so when he would come into the office, the waiting room would just light up because he would talk to everybody. And then he came in one day and he looked ashen and gray and sad. And I just said, and he said, so I let him cut the line. I took him in the back and he said very specifically what was going on with him and that he was given about 5 weeks and then he was going to be gone. And so it was extremely sad and we cried on each other. And he was going through a surgical procedure at Mount Sinai Hospital in a handful of weeks to try to help him. And they were very clear that it probably wasn't going to and to get affairs in order. So I gave him a box of ASEA, and this was back in 2011. We knew nothing but 2 ounces twice a day back then. That's all we knew. And so I said, I've seen this do great things for the immune system. So maybe after they do that procedure, you'll do better and I'll see you again. And so they were doing what they called the final CT scan a few days before that process was going to happen. And he came in and he showed me his report and he said, the pulmonologist said, explain this. And I read it and it was better. And I said, are you doing the stuff that the guy made? He said, no, none of that worked. I wasn't doing anything except for your salt water. And I said, we'll just keep doing it. And so month by month, we were getting more CT scans and we were just getting happier and happier. Notice we're discussing feelings, which are perfectly compliant. And he was the happiest guy on the planet. And I just bumped into him in a gas station about 10 months ago. And it's now 12 years later. And so when I saw that, I said to my wife, it is criminal for us to not share this. How can we not talk about this? And so we're lifers.
You
Yeah,
know,
that's
So-
like
I
goosebump.
had an early experience. Nothing to do with what we were
we're still
just
talking
talking
about
about. What's that?
I said, we're still talking about mine, Aaron.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
He's joking. It's your
I
turn.
love him. He's my brother.
Well,
He's
I
my
had this
brother.
I
profound
knew this was going to be
experience.
like this.
You know, I had this profound experience that was just so incontrovertible. Things you just do not ever see. And, you know, basically had these people who got their brain back. And I just never seen anything remotely like it. It was dramatic. I mean, crazy. You know, this guy that woke up after 23 years of being basically useless. And I went, just like Foster, I said, if this changes one more person in this lifetime, like these people, I have an obligation, you know, to share this. And it was like, it doesn't matter what people say anymore. It's, they have to have this, you know. And the reality is, like most of you guys, I probably hear a story of that caliber that you, things like Foster said, you just do not see. I would say every 4, 5, 6 months, and, you know, almost daily, frequently, people who just sleep better and feel better and think more clearly and hurt less and on and on. But just, you know, I wouldn't be doing this, you know, if it was just to hype something, I wouldn't even be here. You know, to me, sincerity and caring and transparency is everything. It's what my life is about. So there's no way I would be here if this weren't what we're saying it is.
So Lee, can
Yeah.
you cover real quick, why do we talk in code talk? Why can't we say all the medical terms? I mean, we gave the disclaimer, but why? I mean, it's a saltwater based product. I mean, come on, why can't we say?
Well, we can't make medical claims, you know,
Why?
when we're presenting this to the public. And the reason why is that this is a supplement. You know, we're on the track of the original, I shouldn't say we, the original biotech researchers were on track to develop this as an FDA-approved drug. It would have been utilized, obviously, afterwards under supervision of a licensed physician. But for a variety of reasons, mainly one that they could not achieve what's called an LD50 or a lethal dose 50, where anything being tested, the dose is increased until 50% of the lab animals perish, and then they know the toxicity level. Well, that never happened. All the animals apparently just got healthy and none of them died. And so the financial backers said, well, if you're not going to be a drug, we're out of here. We're going to go on to the next, put our money somewhere else. And Bertus Norton, who was our founder at that time, was working with that group to help him, raise money for the research. And he took it over, and they basically flipped it to the other side of the FDA as a supplement. And as a supplement, we can't make medical claims, and we can't talk about treatment. We can't talk about therapy or make claims of any kind. And so we're restricted legally by the kinds of discussions that we have. And so some of the discussion that we have is in code talk. We all understand what we're talking about when we speak generically. But that's the reason why we have this differing way of speaking about it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and we do that to protect it, because we don't want it to get taken away. I mean, could you imagine Aaron or Foster being without this? Where would we be without it? I mean,
No. And you have to have goosebumps, Foster, to bump into somebody 10 months ago that's been on it 12 years, and it played an impact on keeping him healthy. That's always a good feeling.
yeah. So
We got
here's,
teary-eyed all over again.
Yeah, imagine.
did you get any questions at the gas station kind of while you were hugging and crying? I don't know.
No, most of the people in town know me.
Okay, that's a common occurrence. So here comes a question. Because my biggest concern is I don't want to say anything that causes someone to run the other way. And I've been known to do that. But my other concern is when people start drinking the molecules, that they have something happen that isn't their normal. And there's a couple listening right now. And I sent them a text to see how they're doing. They've been on the product a little over 2 months. And I asked, they have mom and dad, middle age, a little bit younger, and they got 2 children. I asked how they're doing, and they said, well, to be honest, Jim, we're struggling. My physical well-being has deteriorated since I started. It's probably a complete coincidence, but I honestly haven't felt this bad in a long time. And the only thing that has changed is taking the ASEA. I'm taking 8 ounces a day and sticking through it with it for the time being. I'm probably going to get some blood work done just to make sure. But can you talk to people like this? And there's a lot of people out there that it's making me not feel well. Can you explain, Foster? And I sent them actually a copy that I found in the ASEA United. I sent that to them. I'm sorry. But can you just, for everyone else, what is this rebalancing back to normal? Can you go over that, please? And then same thing with you, Dr. Kaufman.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'll do the light, fluffy version, and then Aaron, you can do the science. So what happens is when you start drinking the molecules, your body starts to work the way it was designed. It's optimized. So detoxification is a process that has to happen every moment of the day, or we're not going to survive. So that's your body's job, is that it has to get rid of waste products and metabolic junk and toxins. And so when you start drinking the molecules, that process is optimized. And when it's optimized, and now these things are mobilized and they go into your bloodstream, if by some chance there's a lot of old junk that's in there, or some really toxic junk that's in there, I treat a lot of people from New York City. When they're around bus fumes all day long, every day, we call it detox symptoms. It's just junk being mobilized. And so It's a beautiful thing to watch. It's important, we always try to manage expectations in the beginning. And it's like amazing things are going to happen to your body that haven't been able to happen before you were supplementing with Redox. But if by some chance you don't feel good, or you get achy, or you get lethargic and tired, or you get maybe a headache or a little bit of a rash, or your GI system starts speeding up and stuff just starts coming out, congratulations. It means that your body is starting to do what it's been wanting to do, but just wasn't able to. And now it is. And if it gets really uncomfortable, the important thing is to know there are no side effects. It's just your body in sort of a hyperdrive, a hyper healing mode, which is great. And if it's too uncomfortable, slow it down. So instead of doing 8 ounces, maybe try 2. And if that's comfortable, go to 3 or 4, and then just sort of ramp it up slowly until they're comfortable. And if they're totally comfortable after seeing this and they hear Aaron's explanation and they say, okay, this is good, I'm not worried about it, then you just stick through the course and just drink tons of water. Make sure at least a half an ounce per pound of body weight. Rest, great diet. Try to stay away from smoke and alcohol and sugar and junk, and your body's going to catch up, and then it's going to be very different. And typically when we see people who have this detoxification sort of hyperactivity, they're the ones that when they get out on the other side, that's when they really start seeing great results.
Okay, Foster, my number one question that I want everyone to understand, is there any, and you mentioned it briefly, but go into a little bit more detail. Is there anything bad that can happen to anybody when they start either applying the gel or utilizing the liquid when we drink it? Is there ever anything bad or dangerous to the body? Okay,
nothing's ever dangerous. The beauty of this product is that sometimes it works so fast and it works so well. So, we're a little bit more careful with people who have high blood pressure. Sometimes, as the body starts dumping junk and the blood gets a little more viscous, sometimes it can go up a few points and it makes people a little nervous. So we just tell people who have high blood pressure, sometimes if they have thyroid, sometimes thyroid responds very quickly and starts doing really great things. We don't want them to feel weird and get nervous. So we try to manage all those expectations up front. There are no side effects. Sometimes it's uncomfortable to start healing very quickly and going back towards homeostasis or balance very quickly. It's a beautiful thing to watch and behold. And if it gets to be too much, just slow it down for a little while till your body catches up, and then you can start ramping it up again.
Real quick, just spreading it out through the day, would that also make it a little bit easier?
Absolutely.
So doing it every maybe 4 hours or so?
Absolutely. So look at this. They said, I just waved you off. Absolutely correct. Right. So sometimes, if somebody's doing 8 ounces, they do 4 ounces in the morning, 4 ounces in the afternoon, and that's too much. Try 2 and 2 and 2 and 2, or 1 and 1 and 1 and 1. And that's a great way to sort of titrate it up.
You have a really good instructional guide too that I've enjoyed sharing with people to show
we
them
share that
how
with
to-
everybody, Foster.
to start slow and build up to 16.
Beautiful.
Aaron? Yeah, Aaron?
Yeah, what Foster said.
The science.
Ditto.
You woke them up.
What's that?
You woke up Aaron.
Yeah. I really like the concept Dr. Samuelson came up with about cells being senescent. When we're deficient in these redox signaling molecules that we're making in every cell in our body constantly because of age or disease, or like Foster's talking about, toxic environment. A big one is American food, all the sugar and starch and GMOs and Roundup and, all the dyes and additives and so forth. All of this leads to this redox imbalance in our cells that Lee has written about so brilliantly in both his books, the one behind him, Redox Matters, and more, to a day-to-day usage guide, Healthy Matters, and he talks about the redox lifestyle. So when these redox molecules in our cells are in balance, it can deal with all these toxicities that Foster was talking about, and it can, restore its own homeostasis. But it's real common these days for all kinds of reasons to be out of balance. And so the cell doesn't recognize damage and doesn't repair it and doesn't kill off abnormal cells and so forth, because it's overwhelmed. And the analogy that Dr. Samuelson came up of cells being senescent, that means senile. And you think about a person who used to be really sharp and now they're just kind of sitting there and the garbage is accumulating, or, an extreme example, the house is on fire and they're just sitting there, and, when we replenish these redox molecules, what Foster was talking about, these cells start to wake up and go, oh my gosh, this place is a mess. And they start taking the garbage out. Or, the person puts the fire out or whatever. Just what Foster describes so eloquently, the cells start doing their job, which is what they did when we were little kids and we were flush with these redox molecules. And so, just like Foster, I tell people that's great when they have this kind of reaction. And yeah, if this guy's feeling terrible, back down on the dose. Just like he said, maybe go to an ounce 4 times a day, but drink a lot more water to wash the garbage out. And it's a good sign. It means his cells are waking up.
Okay. Lee, can you kind of share what happened with your situation with your wife, in that she had a pretty, anyway, you share what happened with her.
Yeah, I can share that. I've written about that in the book as well for those who want to dig deeper. But after, I don't know, 30, 40 years, when you're sick that long, you don't really keep track. But it was a long time, and we were at a doctor's appointment, and he made the comment. We complained, that she seems to be plateauing. What can we do? And he made the comment, well, I think you should get her on some redox signaling molecules. And I said, I don't know what that is. And he goes, just Google it and get some. And so I said, oh, I know, but what is it? And he goes, just Google it and get some. And that was literally the end of that. And so I left and went home and Googled it and found a source. Had no relationship, with where the source was. I just found a site and ordered it. It came in, and within probably about 48 hours, it was like flipping a switch for her, and that really got my attention. And I actually sent a message back to the physician. He and I are, know each other quite well, and I said, you would not believe what's happening. And as I recall, his response as he texted back to me was something like, it was a single word, and it was really with a question mark. So he was himself very impressed. And I later learned out that because of that, he said, well, I'm going to, I realized that he was kind of scratching the bottom of the barrel trying to figure out what to do for my wife. Not all these smart doctors know all the answers. And so he suggested that. We're grateful that he did, because it was in a word, it was amazing. We've been everywhere. We've done, every kind or branch of medicine and, thing that we could think of to help her. And so that was the beginning of my, I have kind of an intense brain. I need to know how things work. And that was the beginning of my research. I went back into the internet, and that was what started. It didn't start as a book, but it started as a bibliography and just research notes as I was trying to figure it out. And I don't know who it was. I don't know if it was Dr. Kaufman, but somebody, it was a physician or two that said, can we just have a copy of your notes? And better yet, just make it a book. So, but I've come at this now from an experiential, angle. I've got my own story too, but that's not unlike Jim's with his back, but also from kind of the academic science side, where you get in and realize that people say, well, how do I know this is going to work? And I look at them and go, it always works. I can talk to you about, the biochemistry and exactly what's happening with these redox switches that are in every cell of the body. It always works. And whether it works to your degree of expectation or whatever, in fact, basically, this idea of detoxification, that was my wife's story. At about week 2 or 3, she started feeling awful. And it took about, I don't know, it was 4 or 5, 6 weeks. You know, she kind of toughed it out. We didn't change the dose. We didn't know anything. We just, you know, pushed through it. And she finally came out on the other end. But it was a detox, you know.
You know, real quick, and then Anne's going to ask something, but the longer you use these, the longer you stay on these molecules, the benefits are stackable, correct? They get better and better and better, right, Dr. Kaufman and Aaron? I'm sorry, and Foster?
That's a really good point, you know, and when we're communicating this whole new science to people, you know, this, as Alan Noble says, this category creator, this, you know, there's not a shelf in the health food store. So we have to have these explanations calls like this for people to understand, because they think it's like this or like that, and it's not.
Right.
But when we have these discussions, you know, I try to include, Jim, that just what you're talking about, that not only do the changes happen immediately, like Lee was talking about, and they're reproducible, and we can do all these little tricks that prove it, and there's amazing science behind it and so forth, but the changes are progressive. People go, okay, I'm going to give it a month or 3 months or even 6 months. Well, those of us on this call who've been drinking it for more than a few years, you keep noticing improvements. It's a progressive thing. You know, it's not really stacking. It's more the idea of, I love the concept of youthening ourselves. You know, okay, this person has this condition or, you know, disease or whatever, and what's it going to do for it? Well, okay, how would your body respond if your cells were 20 years younger or 40 years younger? And that's the way to think about it. So as we youthen our whole body, you know, different things happen at different rates. I remember looking at the pictures of that woman's arm, and she said, you know, she's 84 years old, and it took her 84 years to get all the wrinkles and so forth. And she used the Renewed 28 gel, the Redox gel, and in 28 days, it was dramatically better. So, you know, things are going to improve over time. And my experience, and I think most of us experience, I would say 3 to 4 years, I kept noticing improvements. And it's not like I don't notice anything new in the last 5 or 6 years, but they're not as often. And I really clearly get it, that it's helping me maintain what I've got. And, you know, what you were alluding to earlier, oh my gosh, I would be afraid not to drink this. If I ever want to commit suicide, I'll just stop drinking it, you know.
So could I jump in with a question here? Or Anne, were you going to go?
Well, just wanted to continue on the discussion. So I was watching both of y'all's videos today. Malmed, yours was the fireside chat that you did when we were at the Denny Diamonds, and you were talking about, you know, informing people about dosage, and you shared a little bit of that already. And then I was watching Aaron, yours was related to when somebody has a crisis situation and making sure you drink enough. And so you were sharing your situation where you drank a whole bottle because you had an injury. I think those are the pictures Jim was talking about. I don't know if that's the same accident, but how you were, you know, sharing that, well, sometimes you do need to do like 2 ounces every 2 hours because you may need to get, you're not there at that balance yet. Your cells are still messed up. So you just got to keep doing it. And I always think it's interesting, people that are, you know, years and years and years are using Western medicine. They're not getting any better. Finally, as a miracle, Lee was able to get his wife what she needed. And even if you're not perfect, you're still going the right direction. And it just seems like some people have, and like Jim, I mean, he did hydrocodone for 25 years, even before I met him. And it's just like, the doctor didn't even look for something that was holistic or natural. Of course, you know, we didn't know about Redox then. And so I just love how this product can be given to any age, any issue, And it's just going to be variable based on, like you said in the video, what your condition is. And if you're, I think it was Malmed, you said, if you're healthy, you'll probably be fine with, 4 ounces. If you're not, then you need to give it time and you need to take more. And that's hard to get people to see that, yeah, you're taking it, but you just may not be taking enough. So maybe we could talk a little bit about both of those videos and what y'all advise for people that, not to give up, just to keep going at it. Just like you said, month after month, you're going to see something else change. So, to that.
It's a great question. So part of this is, I love the Lee's wife story is that she started drinking it within 48 hours, she felt better. But then as it started doing more, as the cells started working more normally, then she had her detoxification issues later, which is essentially what made her that much more healthy when she came out on the other side of it. So this is about persistence. When somebody says, I'll do it for a month, I say, okay, you're not ready. Right. Unless you're willing to give me 3 months, I want 90 days, and you're going to take it exactly the way that we suggest, then you're just not ready. And yes, there's a cost, but there's a million cliches. How much does sickness cost? This costs way less. And look at the things that we may never know what it is that we didn't get. But I drink, people love to say, how much do you drink? Depending on my day, between 8 and 16 ounces a day. In the beginning, we knew 4 ounces a day. That's all we knew for years. And, Jim, your question was, is it stackable? And I know Aaron doesn't like the word stackable, but yes, it's really stackable. You can call it that because we keep seeing changes over time. So back when I started in 2010, I had a big white spot of gray hair. It was like about a 5-inch diameter circle. And I didn't care because I didn't care about my hair. So then after I'd been on it for about 6 months, the cardiologist next door, his office manager said, "Are you dyeing your hair?"
I love it.
So now the patch was about 2 inches in diameter, but I hadn't really noticed. And I said, "Dyeing it like that?" And she said, "You have less gray hair." I said, "Do not go to the ophthalmologist because I like the way you're seeing things." So I went home and I said, "Emily thinks I have less gray hair." And Terry went, "Ooh, I think you do." And then after another 6 months or so, I had no more gray hair. And I had no gray hair. And I don't think I don't think we need a disclaimer for this. So it was just my perception of the color. It was dark and I had none for years. And then it just started coming back and I didn't get that big patch on the back of my head. I started getting normal, just male pattern stuff. And so had I stopped after 3 months, I would have been, I'll say it, totally white like that guy. But
and talking about that, but that now goes to a lot deeper level because we're talking about the genetic coding that you were not coded to go gray yet.
Right.
So when you wake up your genetic coding, then your body goes, "Oh, hey, wait a minute. That's supposed to be your normal color." Now that is going really deep, but that is at the depth that Lee Ostler loves to go into. And I see Aaron over there smiling. Any thoughts on the genetic study?
No, what I'm smiling about is this, it's like, it didn't make my hair get darker. It didn't make me grow hair, but I'll take all the other things that it did. And it speaks to, it's so unique what it does for each of us. And, again, people, I think early on have this notion, okay, if I do it for 3 months, that's what it's going to do. And I think what we've been talking about is very, very important. The longer you stick with it, the more you're going to see.
Yeah.
And we have the 90% in 90 days. And with my financial background, I'm going, yeah, but what about the 10%ers? And what Foster, you're smiling, but it's always working. That's something Lee says. It cannot not work. It's always working. But getting that through someone's head, hey, I'm spending some money on this. I want to feel something. I wish we could play that song Feelings right now. And I'm not a singer.
Oh, dear.
But talk about that real quick, because a lot of people go, hey, I want to feel something. What are your thoughts, Foster?
In the past, because as most of you know, I have an obnoxious streak. Sometimes when they say I felt nothing, I will say, okay, I want you to drink half a bottle tomorrow and half a
Wow.
bottle the next day, and call me on day 3. You might not feel great, but you're going to feel different. And I won't use the quote because we're New Yorkers here, so sometimes profanity makes it into the conversation. But
Oh,
one
no.
guy came in and he used a lot of profanity. He said, you knew exactly what was going to happen. He said, so I convinced my wife I'm going to drink 3 cases a month from now on. And he's been drinking 3 cases a month for about 10 years. Because
Wow.
that
Awesome.
experiment. So that's a little risky, but here in New York, I can get away with a little bit more than some of you folk. But that's a way. And the other way, which I don't really like, is I say, okay, go off it for a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I say.
And see
Feel
what
it
happens.
without it. That's
Right.
it.
Dare you.
Well,
Feel
Double
it.
dog dare you.
Feel it without it. That's
Exactly,
right.
but make sure before they do that, they are filling out that health inventory, that health awareness form, so they can see what's been going on, then go off it for a bit and see what happens. And it's a risk to take them off. I like to have them go on a whole bunch so they can see, you know what? So if they drink a whole bunch and they get a little bit of a headache, or they feel lethargic and and we've already managed their expectations and told them, you might have a speeded up detoxification and not feel great, then try to tell me this stuff isn't doing something.
And always when they get off of it, I say, you better have some handy because you're going to want it back on real quick.
Exactly.
You
Or
know,
keep
sometimes I'll do
911
the
on
same
speed
thing
dial.
when people, what is that?
Do what?
Dial Foster on, I have Foster's number on speed dial. Call him real quick to get some more product.
Exactly.
Right.
But the joke, you know what, I'm going to interrupt for a second. Back when I worked in the hospital, in the beginning, I used to buy 10 packs. We had 10 packs many years ago. And I used to have stacks of it in my office because people from the hospital would run out. So the joke was, on Monday morning, there would be scratch marks on my door when I got into work.
Oh,
Awesome.
now, Aaron, you had a comment.
And then I want to get to what Lee was going to ask.
What was your comment?
I don't remember.
Oh,
Lee?
shoot.
Here, let me get some more.
Need
sleep.
more. Drink some more. Lee, what were you
Well,
going to say
got you
earlier?
Distracted.
He was going to say what Foster said.
Yeah,
Right.
Malmed. No, I like
Malmed.
it. Calls you
Dan
Malmed.
calls me
I call
Malmed.
it
It's fine.
Oh, I should have called you
Just
Foster.
just
I'm
keep
sorry.
Foster
Malmed.
and Ann away from the pool table. That's all I got to say.
We love to play pool, don't we?
Go
Yeah.
ahead, Lee.
So earlier you were talking, about that was criminal not to share this.
Yeah.
So, here you guys are, you're successful doctors in your own practices in your own right, and you come across this, and now you're saying, well, we're going to share this. So maybe kind of flip to the other side of the coin and talk about the other aspect of how this fits into your life right now with regards, this is a network. And, Foster, you were like me. It was like, it was one of those things, right? So why does this make sense?
And
You know,
That
why
was Aaron. Aaron had a
All three of
bigger
them.
one.
All 3 of them were skeptical.
why in this enlightened age, I read a medical journal 2 or 3 months ago that said 40% of physicians have a side hustle. And it astounded me. It's like, I just was outside my, it kind of blindsided me why that would even be that way, but there's a reason. Could you speak to that?
Yes. So the question was, why does it make sense? And if I were obnoxious, I'd say it makes sense because it makes dollars.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Terry and I actually authored a chapter in a book that's coming out soon about our experience and how we went from knowing nothing in network marketing and hating it and choking on the word and and I had just as much an aversion as Aaron did. People would walk in, say MLM, and we'd say, no, get out, don't talk to me. I'm not going to see you as a patient anymore. And then the story was, we weren't talking about the business because that was verboten, because that was bad, we thought, when we were ignorant. But we were sharing the product with patients because it was amazing. And so as people were just becoming preferred customers and coming and buying bottles, one day in my office, we got our ASEA Smart Wallet. We got $300 for a week of work of just sharing the product. And I got a check from Medicare, Aaron, for 9 cents the same day.
Crazy.
And so I went home. By the way, just so you know, I never cashed it. I placed it on the door in my private office. And I went home and I said, Terry, this is a clue. 9 cents from an insurance company and $300 from this network marketing company. We need to see if they're real, and we need to see if they're ethical, because if they're not, we can't have anything to do with this company. And so I called the leaders, not in my upline, I called everybody. Back then it was only in the US pretty much. And I must have called 8 people. I called Alan Noble, Sue Brenchley, Denny, I called everybody and said, why do you think this is real? Why do you think this is the place to come? And every single one of them said, you're so blessed that you've never done this before. This is the place to be. They're ethical. What matters to them is people. And they just went on with this whole beautiful scenario. It sounded too good to be true, and it's all true. So the beauty of this is that when we share it with people and they share it with people, yes, we make money. Just like when a patient comes in to be treated by me or Aaron or Lee, when they come in, they expect to pay. When we give them information, they expect to pay. When I give them that something that's going to change their future, they expect to pay. And if they don't, then it's not for them. So we can't say the wrong thing to the right person. We can't say the right thing to the wrong person. But this business model is brilliant. And that's why everybody on here is a doctor, sort of, Jim, and we're lifers. It just makes perfect sense because it makes dollars.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was perfect. Aaron,
same way.
that was great. Foster, you said that beautifully. What about with you, Aaron?
You know, Jim, I was exceptionally network marketing averse from experiences in the 80s and the 90s. And, you know, again, I alluded to earlier, to me, honesty and sincerity and, you know, transparency are everything. It's, you know, who I feel like I am. And I just got fed up to hear with the hype and the misrepresentation and so forth and all the rah-rah that, you know, I saw in the companies I was involved with, and, you know, not, you know, representing themselves honestly and so forth. And I just said, to heck with it. And for 15 years, just what Foster was talking about, people would come in with the latest, greatest juice and antioxidant and zeolites, and they'd say, you need to look at this. They still do. And I would say, is this network marketing? They go, yes. And I would say, absolutely not. And I was serious. And when Dr. Edmonds presented this to me, I said, is this network marketing? I said, no. She was smart. She dripped on me. She kept giving me the research articles, which coincidentally, divine orchestration, were all about what I was doing, running up the mountain. It was, you know, athletic performance, the VO2 max and the endurance and the metabolic studies and so forth. And it was good science. And so I started using it, had this phenomenal experience. And I was upset. I go to Dr. Edmonds and I said, I'm running like an animal, you know, I'm sleeping, I don't hurt as much, my mind is clear, I'm feeling great. I'm going to have to drink this for the rest of my life. And I was upset. And she looks at me and she goes, well, my memory is she put her hands on her hips, but you know, she says, if you tell 6 people about it, yours get paid for. And I just go, oh. And I was talking to a patient one day and it was like, I bet they would benefit. And I go, you know, I sigh and I roll my eyes back. And I said, you know, I've been drinking this stuff called ASEA. And they looked up into the right. I goes, no, it's not the acai berry. And they go, oh. And I say, I'm running like an animal, all this. And they are leaning in and their eyes are getting wide, like when you're reading a story to a little kid, and they go, I want that. And literally the first one that said that, I said, you do? You know, because my experiences with the hype and misrepresentation was people are backing up. And it just, I would walk in the room and think, oh, this person wouldn't want it. And the next thing I know, I'm telling them about it and they're enrolling like every day. And I just, kind of had this meteoric rise. And I remember them asking me to speak one time. And it was my first year in the business. And, I'd hit a bunch of ranks and goals and stuff. And so they asked me to speak. And I said, I feel like I've hit the jackpot with this. I'm having all these amazing experiences myself. I'm watching people go through changes that you just don't see in mainstream or alternative medicine. And they keep sending me more and more and more money, which I'm not averse to. And then I said, but then I met all you people, and then I met the corporate people, just what Foster was talking about, and this amazing level of sincerity and caring, and the ASEA mission of being a force for good in the world and changing people's lives. And I went, oh my gosh, I'm home. I used to say my goal was to spend the rest of my life hanging out with these people, you people. And I don't say that anymore because I am.
That's awesome.
Wow. It's 9 o'clock. This is the honest to goodness, the fastest hour in
It always
ASEA.
feels like-
And we didn't even
I
get
love-
to see my face.
I know.
come out.
We didn't even get to a lot of the things I wanted to cover, but Foster and Aaron, you guys are phenomenal. I know you guys are good friends, but it really comes across. And it's very humbling that you guys take your time to do this and to help pay it forward and to share this with the world, because we're all on a mission to do that. And it's just really cool that we've become friends and we see each other. And, it's just so cool what we're created here with this, as we say, a family of like-minded people that really want to bless others. Go ahead, Aaron.
What hit me is I recognized a long time ago, it's a business, but it's the funnest thing I've ever done.
Foster?
Exactly.
It's fun. It's like, the line is, making a living while making a difference. When COVID shut my whole business down, ASEA just kept us going. And it was just, we built it for so many years, and it's like, to not have to worry, to just know that, people work however many years for a pension. We built that in like 8 years, and we have this pension that anybody could live on. And it's just so amazing that it's so ethical and it's so powerful. And there's so much science. And I am a little sad tonight that I didn't get to hear a lot of Lee's science, because it's really great and it's life-changing. This is the place to be, but only if you're interested in being younger and healthier and wealthier. And if not, maybe this isn't your place.
Right.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah, we got to have you guys back on. Someone even mentioned that we need to have you two guys obviously be a regular, which you already are. All I can say is thank you. I can't wait to see you guys in Fort Worth, Texas in September.
Yeah.
That's going to be really cool to get together with you guys. So guys, thank you deeply. This recording will be available at redoxmatters.com shortly. We have to get out of here pretty quick. My son is playing a musical gig starting 3 minutes ago. So Lee, is there anything you want to add? And guys, we have another gift coming, and it ties into the last few minutes of the conversation that Foster and Aaron beautifully shared. But Dr. Ostler is going to have it. I don't know if I'm not going to spill the beans, Lee, but he's got a piece of work coming out that I think is going to be one of the most significant game changers that we've ever seen. It's a new book. Lee is going to be hitting the market within a month, maybe. We will be dedicating a show. We will have Jerry Yerke back on to help to share this gift that Dr. Ostler has spent so much of his time in his life in giving back to us. So, but next week, guys, we have got with us, great, just lost his name. Who is it? Who's on next week? Oh, Dr. Ray Dixon and Dr. Stephen Dalton.
Yeah. No, actually, it's Stephen Hines.
Stephen Hines, I'm
There you
sorry.
go.
Sorry, Dr.
Brand
Hines.
new. We just
So he's
picked
a
him.
new, he's not new, but
Not
he's
new.
new time,
New
first
to
time
us.
on the show.
Yeah.
While Lee Ostler and Maureen Hayes will be in Spokane, Washington next week at the ASEA Impact event. And if you are in the Charlotte area, they have an event going on. It's over this evening, but it'll be an all-day event tomorrow. If you're brand new in the area, even within 4 or 5 hour drive, get down there. And then over also in Spokane next week, a Friday evening, and then an all day Saturday event there as well. You come and meet these kind of people, and Dr. Ostler, it changes your whole life when you see and you feel what we're discussing. Yeah, it's hard to explain.
And for people who are just checking it out, who haven't started, become either a customer or an associate, it's free.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do.
Yeah.
Yes, I want to say real quick that Dr. Ostler maybe made a slip up or a boo-boo. Don't go to anywhere else to buy this product. Get back to the person that had the courage to reach out to you and get you on this. Don't go to some other website that's run by a big A or the Amazon and all that. Don't do that.
Let
You
me-
just
Let me
I
be
know.
clear. It was not Amazon. It was an ASEA distributor, but I had to find them.
Right. But I don't want people going out there looking for it at where they normally will go look to buy stuff. And I use Amazon for things, but I would never use that for a consumable product, and especially something like this. But respect the person that had the guts to call you to open your eyes to a technology that soon, I believe in the next 5 to 10 years, this will be, have you had your Redox today? It'll be a national slogan. It'll be a worldwide slogan. Have you had your Redox today? So guys, thank you.
Appreciate y'all.
Foster, you're awesome. Next time we need to have Terry join us. Please tell her that we said hi.
Send her my hugs.
Dr.
Absolutely.
Kaufman, you're awesome. Lee, you're the best. And so
Yeah.
guys, we have a show coming up soon with Dr. Ostler and his new gift. That will be a new book coming out soon that I believe it changes everything in the financial world. So guys, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great
Thanks,
weekend.
God
everybody.
bless.
Have a great
Thanks.
night. Love you guys.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Good night.